Right guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video. In this one I'm just going to be showing you how to fit the Shimano Ultegra R8150 Di2 front derailleur to your bike. So let's go ahead, let's run through the steps. So here we have the front derailleur. As you see, this is a braze-on setup for this one. So with this you've got a 4mm hex there with your mounting bolt to go onto your hanger there. Then you've got a 2mm just there, see that in that hole there. Now that's going to adjust the tension on the cage, and it comes through there, and that will go through and push on your frame. So if you've got a carbon fibre frame like most bikes are, then you need the tab that comes with it to stick on your frame wherever that screw is going to come through and push on it. So it's got to touch on this tab, so the part without the sticker on it, it touches on there. So you just stick that on your frame, and then that will come through and touch on it to allow you to adjust the tension on the cage itself. And then your wire obviously plugs in that port there to connect it up. So the first thing we need to do is just remove your mounting bolt out of the way to start with, and then we just put the derailleur on there. This is just temporary, so we can see where the tab needs to be stuck on the frame behind the derailleur. So if you just get it lined up in place, so as obviously it's lined up here with the teeth on the marker there. So if you get it sat in the right position like that, so you can see, if you look closely down the back there, when you screw in that 2mm hex there, so you just screw that in, and then if you look down the back you'll see where it's going to hit the frame, and then you know that's where you need to stick that tab on behind there. So if you have a look down there, it might be a job to see it. You're better off having the back wheel removed so you can see in there. And then have a look, just wind that into it's just going to touch, and then you'll see. Then what you want to do is just make a note of it, and then just back that all the way back out again, so it's not doing anything for the moment. And then once you know where it's going to go, then you can just take your derailleur off again like that, and then remove the cover off there so it reveals the sticky part there. And then so you stick that on wherever yours is going to go on your frame there. So we're going to stick that on. So now we've got the tab stuck on there, we can refit the derailleur back on. What we do is just put a little bit of anti-seize on the bolt, on the mounting bolt there, just so you know it's going to come off again if you ever need to remove it. And then again mount this on there, so as the teeth are lining up again with the marker on there. If you haven't got that gauge stuck on there like that, then it's just a 1 to 3mm gap is what you need between the teeth and the cage. So we get that in position there. And once you're happy with that, then what you need to just make sure is, before you tighten that bolt up, just have a look. Obviously the cage is parallel at the front there with the teeth of the chainring. As it goes down, it'll be roughly parallel all the way down, but you don't want it parallel at the back. You just want that back edge here just inboard of the chainring, about 1mm inboard. So if you're looking down at the front here, in line with it, you just want that back edge in a bit, because then what we'll do is we'll tension it up in a minute, and we'll bring that back out with some tension on it with that 2mm. It's going to go through and touch the tab. So just make sure that the back end's inboard of the chainring at the back. So you just got the 5mm hex snug down there, just hold it. Now while you're just doing that up, you just keep your finger on the back of it there, just to keep it over out the way, because you find when you tighten that up it wants to come back this way. So just keep it about 1 millimetre behind the teeth of the chainring there while you tighten it up. And then when you're happy with that, so if you can torque that up to the to about between 5 and 7 Newton meters of torque on that. So now we've got that torqued up and you're happy with the alignment on the teeth here as well, make sure you check that to it's lined up properly. And then what we'll do, you get your 2mm hex there in that hole, and then we'll wind that in. And then as it makes contact with the tab the other side what you stuck on, just keep your eye on the back of the cage looking down on it, and then you'll see it come round at the back there, so as it's then in parallel with the chain ring, the teeth, as it is at the front and the back. So if you want to check that obviously you've got it parallel, you can just use a hex head, Allen key like that, and then just hold it up by the teeth there and just check that you've got it parallel at the front and the back there. So just hold that on like that and just have a look, see if that's parallel like that. So once you're happy with the cage, then obviously what we need to do is just hook the wire up to the derailleur. So it comes with this piece like that, just basically an extension there piece. All that does is the wire just goes in it like that, and then the groove in the connector on the end just sits in a little groove there like that. So it just basically looks like that. And then with your tool basically goes on the end there like that, whereas it would have gone in here on the original to connect it up. It now just sits on the end there, and then you just put that in and push it in till it clicks. And the same for removing the wire, just use that and pull it out the other way, so that goes in there, and then we just hook that up. So we've got the chain on, as you can see. So what we need to do is shift up to the outer chain ring to start with, and the 11, so the smallest sprocket on the rear, and then we can do the fine adjustments using the shifter. So as you can see there, we shifted up to the outer chain ring on the 11 tooth at the rear, smallest sprocket. So now we can put the derailleur, the rear derailleur, into the adjustment mode. So here we are on the rear derailleur. So to put it into adjustment mode, what you need to do is push and hold the button on the rear there until the LED in here lights up yellow. So it's usually probably a couple of seconds, if that. So it goes blue and then yellow, so you know that's in adjustment mode now for the front derailleur. So now we're in the adjustment mode. You go to your front shifter, your left shifter, and the paddles on that shifter. So if you use the smallest button, that does the shifting this way, so out this way, and then larger button will shift it in that way in small increments. So you've got 19 adjustments each way, so this way and that way, so 39 in total. So what you want to look at is in that position, just look up here and make sure you've just got a gap there, just up inside here, just a small amount. Won't be a lot of gap, but just enough so when you're pedaling, obviously the chain isn't making contact just up in here with the chain as you're pedaling round. So just pedal and then just slowly have a look up in there and just see if that's making contact. Obviously you don't want a massive gap there, but you just need enough of a gap so it passes through without hitting it on the chain as it's going through. So have a look at that first in there. So I've had a look in there and we've got plenty of gap there, so we want to move the cage back towards the frame, so to speak. So I'll just go up to the shifter and then just press the large paddle on the shifter, so I'm moving the cage back that way, and then obviously have a look up in here and check that it's not touching. So we're happy with that setting now in there, so we can shift to the next setting and see and check the gap on that. So once you're happy with the gap in here on the 11th tooth at the rear, what you need to do is shift across to the, say, 30 tooth or the 34, the largest at the rear now, leaving it on the large chainring at the front, so you're now on the largest sprocket at the back. So if you leave the derailleur, if you're in shifting, if you're in adjustment mode with that yellow LED lit up, that means when you use the shifter, it's just making the micro adjustments. So you don't want that yellow light on. If you leave the derailleur alone, then eventually that yellow light will just go out and you'll be able to shift the derailleur normally as you would normally be shifting up and down the rear cassette. So you need to get it out of the adjusting mode, where you can press the button for about half a second, and obviously it'll go back out. If you leave it alone, then it'll go blue light and then it'll go back out into so you can shift when there's no light on the rear derailleur. That means you can just shift normally as you would, and then when you're in the largest at the rear, you can press and hold that function button again and put the derailleur back in to the adjustment mode, so the yellow LED is on the rear again. So press and hold it for 2 seconds and bring that yellow LED back on. So when you're in this position, have a look on the inside here. Obviously that's cross chain in that position, you wouldn't be riding in that position, but you have to check it anyway just to make sure in this position, to make sure there is a gap here and it's not hitting. There probably will be a good gap there, so you don't need to worry about it. Like I say, you're not going to be riding in that position anyway on the largest chain ring and the largest rear sprocket on the cassette, but you just still got to check it. So make sure there's nothing touching in there, and then we can do obviously the inner chain ring. So what we're going to do now is just shift down to the inner chain ring. We're still on the largest at the rear, so we just shift that down. So now you're on the inner chain ring. What you want to do is have a look down here and just check there's about a 0.5mm gap, 0.5mm here, and just check that there. Again, if it needs adjusting, go to your rear derailleur, put the yellow light on, and then you can adjust it whichever way you need to there. But more than likely there will already be a gap there, so you might not even have to adjust it at all. So just have a look first and check that. So once you're happy with those settings, what you want to do is just make sure that the derailleur obviously it's working properly. At the front there, just shift up and down. So there you go, that's the installation complete. Obviously what you can do is you can just double check your settings, just make sure, again, just make sure you're 100% happy with it. So I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more cycle related content. Till next one, ride safe and I'll see you then.